Iran unleashes a massive heavy missile barrage directly into what appears to be defenseless Israeli heartland. Central Israeli cities shake violently as precision strikes penetrate deep inside critical strategic zones and infrastructure. Multiple air raid alerts tear through Tel Aviv in a single frantic morning, sending millions scrambling for cover. Cluster-type warheads introduce deadly new complexity, dispersing bomblets that overwhelm Israel's multi-layered air defense grid. This barrage strikes at the worst moment, as Tel Aviv's missile interceptor stockpiles run critically low after weeks of relentless attacks. An Iranian missile barrage struck central Israel, triggering multiple alerts throughout the Tel Aviv metropolitan area on the morning of March 21st, as reported by TASS. Israeli authorities verified this incident marked the fourth missile alert issued that morning alone, prompting widespread activation of civil defense protocols. The IDF instructed residents to promptly enter shelters and await official all-clear notifications, ensuring public safety amid the incoming threats. Air defense systems were promptly engaged, deploying interceptors to counter and neutralize the trajectory of incoming Iranian missiles systematically. Shortly following the activation of sirens, several explosions reverberated across the Tel Aviv metropolitan region, confirming multiple impact points. Preliminary assessments indicated at least one incoming missile incorporated a cluster-type warhead, dispersing submunitions over the targeted zones. In Rishon LeZion, structural assessments confirmed damage at 3 distinct locations resulting directly from the precision of the missile strike. Video evidence from the vicinity captured a prominent crater attributed to one of the dispersed bomblets, illustrating the extent of ground penetration. Civilian infrastructure sustained impacts as well, including reported damage to a daycare facility, according to Al Jazeera coverage of the event. The IDF confirmed emergency response teams were dispatched to affected sites for comprehensive damage evaluation and site security measures. The Israeli military said on March 19 that the Air Force is deliberately choosing not to shoot down some incoming Iranian missiles, reflecting a calculated decision about how best to manage Israel's air defense resources during the war. Officials cited by the Times of Israel said the Israeli Air Force is conserving its interceptor stockpile, especially in situations where interception may be less necessary or less efficient. According to that report, the military is in some cases choosing not to intercept missiles carrying cluster warheads, even though those weapons can scatter multiple explosive bomblets over a broad area. Cluster warheads break apart in the air and release smaller bomblets over wide radius, making interception more difficult because the threat effectively multiplies once the missile opens up. Officials said these cluster munitions are less likely to cause major casualties if civilians are inside shelters, even though they can still inflict damage above ground. Israeli military officials said, and I quote, "Israeli Air Force chooses not to shoot down all or some of the bomblets to conserve its stockpile of short-range interceptors." Israeli Air Force was not sparing any effort to defend Israeli civilians, and would work to intercept any threat, but stressed that the bomblets are almost certain not to cause any harm to civilians if they are sheltering in a protected space. Unquote. Since the war started on February 28, Iran has fired roughly 300 ballistic missiles at Israel according to the IDF, although your line says over 350 and that higher number is not confirmed in the cited reporting here. Israeli officials say an increasing share of those missiles are carrying cluster bomb warheads, which can cause more indiscriminate damage across residential and open areas. This decision not to intercept every such missile comes amid repeated reporting and debate over interceptor availability, even though the IDF has publicly denied that it faces an outright shortage. The Times of Israel reported at least 9 people were killed in Iran strikes in Israel overall and separate cluster munition casualties in specific incidents. Cluster bomb warheads open while descending and can scatter dozens of smaller munitions, with the Times of Israel reporting that they spread submunitions rather than striking as one single warhead. Those smaller bomblets carry several kilograms of explosives and can spread across a radius of around 10 kilometers, creating danger over a much wider area than a conventional single-impact missile. These fragments can cause major property damage on the surface, but officials say they do not penetrate properly built bomb shelters, which is why civilian protection guidance remains centered on reaching shelter quickly. To intercept missiles carrying cluster warheads, the IDF has to rely on long-range systems such as Arrow before the warhead opens, because interception becomes much more complicated after separation. Once such missiles split apart, Shorter-range systems like Iron Dome and David Sling may then be needed to deal with the individual bomblets, further complicating Israel's layered defense effort. Israel has reported over 100 impact incidents with significant damage since the war began. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu held a press conference on March 19 amid persistent death rumors and intense public scrutiny during the war. In that briefing, Netanyahu spoke about the threat posed by Iran's ballistic missile program and said Israel's goal includes removing the missile threat before it becomes even harder to stop.
The death cult in Iran is trying to blackmail the world by closing a key international maritime route, the Straits of Hormuz. It won't work. Israel is helping in its own way, and intel and other means, the American effort to open the Straits of Hormuz, rather. But I want to ask you to imagine how the Ayatollah regime would be able to blackmail the entire world if they had ballistic missiles with nuclear warheads. Just imagine what they would do. Look at what they're doing now and imagine what they would do if they had ballistic missiles, international range ballistic missiles, and nuclear-tipped warheads. Just imagine what a great threat that would be. So today, Israel and the United States are protecting America, Israel, the entire Middle East, but I venture to say the entire world. Despite the fake news that is unfortunately being spread since the start of the war 20 days ago, we are winning and Iran is being decimated. Iran's missile and drone arsenal is being massively degraded and will be destroyed. Hundreds of their launchers have been destroyed, their stockpiles of missiles are being hit hard, and so are the industries that produce them. That's important. In Rising Line, we destroyed missiles and we destroyed a lot of the nuclear infrastructure. But what we're destroying now are the factories that produce the components to make these missiles and to make the nuclear weapons that they're trying to produce. We're wiping out their industrial base in a way that we didn't do before. Iran's air defenses have been rendered useless. Their navy is lying at the bottom of the sea. Today we hit the other part of their navy in the Caspian Sea. Their air force is nearly destroyed. Iran's command and control structure is in utter chaos. And I can tell you that there's still more work to do, and we're going to do it. And I want to close these opening remarks with one other fake news, and that is that Israel somehow dragged the U.S. into a conflict with Iran. Does anyone really think that someone can tell President Trump what to do? Come on. President Trump always makes his decisions on what he thinks is good for America, and may I add, I think what is also good for future generations. The world owes a debt of deep indebtedness to President Trump for leading this effort to safeguard our future.